I appreciate everybody taking some time out of their day to join us today to reveal the secrets of some streamlined MEP workflows. So we're going to go ahead and get started now. My name is Sash Kazaminejad, and I am the Customer Success Manager with Ideate Software, and I will be presenting today. Just a little bit about me. As I mentioned before, I am the Customer Success Manager with Ideate Software. My background is in architecture. I have my California architectural license. And I've been doing this now for quite some time, and have been with Ideate Incorporated now for over 6 years. So I started off with a lot of Revit training and consulting, and then moved over full time to Ideate Software. Just want to let you know, with me on the line today are Glennis Patterson and Richard Taylor, and they will be fielding any sort of questions that you may have during this webcast. So speaking of questions, everybody should see a questions panel on their go-to. Feel free at any point in time to throw questions at them. They are eagerly waiting for your questions. We want to make sure we can help everybody out during this presentation. Another nice thing too is we got 30 minutes to do this, so we'll cover a couple of workflows real quickly. The nice thing about these is we can kind of get these under our belt and help you move on with the rest of your day. Okay, real quickly about Ideate Software. We're here to help you simplify your Revit data challenges. So again, for those of you that are using any of our tools here, you've probably realized that using our tools has definitely helped you save a lot of time regarding your Revit workflows. And so that's why we're here today. And so we wanted to focus on the MEP folks for today and show you how you can use Ideate ReNumber to help simplify your Revit data challenges. Okay, so Ideate ReNumber is found under the Ideate apps in the Ideate Software ribbon. So if you go to the Ideate Software tab, you'll see the Ideate apps section, and you'll see all 9 apps over there. And so for today, we'll just be focusing on the ReNumber. Down the road, of course, we'll focus on other applications for 30-minute webcasts. All right, so for today's topics for ReNumber, we'll just kind of give you a quick tour of the built-in rules. For those of you that may not be as familiar with Ideate ReNumber, we do ship the product with several built-in rules. As a matter of fact, for the MEP discipline, we have a lot of rules already pre-configured for your usage. The nice thing about a lot of our products is we give you the flexibility of customizing those. And so we'll also show you how we can create custom rules. I want to show you this kind of nice long list of parameters and options that we have available to choose from when building our renumbering rules. And then of course, we'll show you how you can use ReNumber. So there's a few different ways that ReNumber works. I always like to say, remember the rules, right? So as I mentioned before, we do create a lot of rules for all disciplines. So again, Ideate Software really focuses on big, broad data. We want to make sure we cover everybody and not just 1 or 2 disciplines. And so for the MEP folks, we have many built-in rules. And so we come with the base rules. The base rules are ones that maybe people use often. And so here's some of the rules that we ship with ReNumber as we speak. So we have ones for handling grids, right? Because every discipline is going to handle grids. But then on the lighting side of things, we have rules for lighting. We even have rules for MEP fabrication. So for those of you that are getting into the MEP fabrication, we've went ahead and built in some rules into that product. We've worked with folks during our beta program to identify some of the renumbering challenges that you can run into when using MEP fabrication parts. And as a result of working with folks, we've come up with some of those rules. And of course, we have rules for dealing with spaces, which I'm actually going to show you some of today. And if you've had challenges of renumbering views that are on sheets, we've actually made rules that make it really easy to handle that workflow. So again, this is a very universal rule that this doesn't pertain to the MEP folks, but to all disciplines as well. And yes, everybody likes bonuses, and so we also ship ReNumber with some bonus rules. So if you have anything to do with conduits and conduit runs, we have a rule for that. We also handle Cobie workflows as well. So for those of you that are handling or dealing with Cobie renaming or renumbering requirements, we can help you with that as well. And if you are using any of our other products like Ideate BIMlink, we also handle some Cobie workflows also in BIMlink as well. And so when you get a chance, I'm going to show you where these rules are located. Definitely take a look at them. And of course, the nice thing is you can always customize some rules by creating brand new ones. And the other great thing too about ReNumber, will allow you to import and export rules as well. So if you are, let's say, on the BIM management side of things, and your office has really strict requirements on numbering requirements, or maybe you have a client that has really strict requirements on how things are supposed to be named and numbered, you can build those rules, you can export them, you can put them on your server if you like to, and then at that point, people can import those rules into their projects and they'll be ready to go. So don't be afraid when you get into ReNumber. Sometimes it's really easy to kind of focus on the main screen. Under this ellipsis button over here is a lot more power, and we'll show you kind of where all that power is located today as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get into a really brief demo over here. So I'll kind of show you a quick tour of the built-in rules, as I mentioned before, and kind of where they're located, how you can create some custom rules, and then also how you can renumber your MEP elements as well. So let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned before, we want to make this a quick webinar so that you guys can kind of get on with your day. So I'm going to switch over to Revit here. So hopefully you see this on your screen. And as I mentioned before, please don't be afraid to ask any questions that you may have, even if they're not necessarily related to ReNumber. If you have some other questions, feel free to ask those. Glennis and Richard are standing by and waiting to answer your questions. So for today's example here, I'm going to be using a mechanical model. So some of you may recognize this project over here. It's a hospital. And some of the stuff I'm going to be showing you today, the workflow and the way you create the rules and the way you apply the rules really work for all disciplines. Again, we wanted to focus on the mechanical side of things, or mechanical, electrical, plumbing side of things, so that you have a good understanding that we can handle your workflows as well. And so that's why we're focusing on that today. So again, under the Ideate software tab, you'll see the Ideate apps panel, and then you'll see the ReNumber, and that's for today's focus. I'll go ahead and launch ReNumber. Okay, and so when you launch ReNumber, a couple things that I wanted to kind of point out to you to start with. If you haven't launched ReNumber yet in a model, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to parse the rules and load up our standard rules into your model. And when you're in a particular view, like for this one, for example, here, we're going to load up rules and show you the rules that really pertain to the category of elements that are visible in this view. We're not going to show you architectural-based rules if there are no architectural elements in here. So it really helps to keep the interface very streamlined. So kind of keep that in mind. If you don't see something here, don't worry about it. It may be underneath of here. All right, so that's kind of the first location over here. The second part over here are kind of the area in which you can apply any sort of customization based on how the rule is composed. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a moment when we create a custom rule. And then we give you options for how you want to renumber, or in some cases even rename your elements. And so we have basically 4 methods. So one, you can just kind of pick elements individually, one by one. Great for small workflows, maybe some really simple tasks, but where I have to do a lot of spaces or other elements, doing it one by one will make you go crazy. So that's where we give you the option over here in which you can actually draw a path through your elements that you want to renumber, and it will renumber those along that path. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but basically when you look at how this graphic is laid out, if a line crosses through an element, even if it just barely nicks it, we'll renumber it along that path. Those are great for straight runs, especially if you have a building that's very linear, you want to just renumber things in a row, fantastic. But we also give you the option over here to renumber elements with using vertices of lines. And when I talk about lines, I'm just talking about simple drafted detail lines. And any point where a vertex hits that element, it's going to renumber along that. It's really handy. It allows you to kind of skip around and renumber with kind of more fine-tuned precision. And then of course, depending on how the rule was built, this may or may not be grayed out, but in some cases you can auto number by view. So we'll get into that in a moment. Under the ellipsis button over here, I just want to kind of point out, we're going to show you the other rules that are saved in this Revit project. So if things show up in here that you're never going to, renumber in your model. So for example, like doors, you can simply remove that and keep this list very streamlined, right? So you may not be interested in doing furniture either. So you can remove these rules. And then as I mentioned before, you can import and export rules. Again, you just select to export, and you can also go to import to pull rules in. Now, one of the things I want to point out to you, when you do select that import button, we default to the basic rules folder, so we do have other rules here. And if I come back one folder, we also have our bonus rules. By the way, a lot of the rules that are here in our ReNumber were feature requests from our customers. These are customers that said, we have a particular workflow that we're trying to resolve. Can you help us? And this was all during our beta testing. And when we did our beta program, we actually thanked our customers by putting some rules in our program for them. So we also encourage our customers that own our products to join our beta program and give us feedback. So for the mechanical, electrical, plumbing folks that are here today, we would love to have you join our beta program. You can reach out to me or Glennis or Richard if you have any questions about that. So that's a little bit about the importing and exporting of rules. Let's go ahead and let's exit here for a moment, and we're gonna tackle a couple of quick workflows in here. And again, I'm gonna focus on the mechanical side just for today's presentation, but as I mentioned before, this workflow that I'm showing you also works for the electrical and plumbing folks. There really is no difference in that workflow. It just all depends on how you wanna tackle the problem. I'm going to close ReNumber here for just a moment, and I just kind of want to show you what I have over here. All this green that you're seeing here are the color fills that are turned on for spaces. And you may notice over here that I have a space, and down below here is the architectural link. The architect has already gone in and has numbered all of their rooms, and we want to make sure that our space names and space numbers are in alignment with their rules. And we actually have built-in rules that can help you accomplish these tasks. They're really, really, really easy to apply. So let's just show that to you right now. I'm going to launch ReNumber. And when I launch ReNumber, we actually have a couple rules that will automatically pull in. If for some reason they're missing, take a look by going to the ellipsis button to see if they're here. And if they are not here, you can go to the import and see if they're located in here. These happen to be the two rules, okay? But they happen to already be loaded. So let's look at that real quickly, and we'll come back and look at how those rules were put together. So I want to grab the space number from room. And again, if I want to, I can draw a path on the fly and draw that, but that would be kind of awkward because this rule here says space number from room. This rule allows me to auto number by view. One thing I want to point out to you, this doesn't globally renumber all spaces for the entire project. When you launch ReNumber, we're talking about the particular view that you're in. So we're going to find all those elements and renumber them in this particular view. If you need to go up to another level afterwards or another view for the next level, you'll want to run ReNumber again in that environment. So I'm going to go ahead here and hit the auto number by view, and I'm going to hit start numbering. And one of the things I want to point out to you is immediately we find the original value and also the new value. And the nice thing here, if for some reason you said, hey, this one here, maybe I want to ignore it, we can ignore it so it doesn't renumber. You can certainly do that. Although in this case, I don't want to do that, okay? And if you, for some reason, don't have a room, but you have a space, we'll go ahead and ignore that. It actually won't be ignored, it just won't have a number applied to it. So we handle it, from that standpoint. There also is kind of a hierarchy to how spaces will work with rooms. If for some reason you put a room in your MEP model that may overlap with an architect's room, we're going to read the room number from that room that you actually put in your model first, then we'll read it from the link second. So just kind of keep that in mind. But I don't know too many MEP folks that are actually doing doing rooms in their own models. They're just doing the spaces. So if you're kind of questioning where room number 1 is, you can zoom to the element and we'll zoom to that room. So that way you can kind of take a look at things before you hit the accept changes. I'll go ahead and hit accept changes and let Revit do its thing. And that was pretty fast. Let me close out of this. You can see here now that we are actually in alignment with the architect's rooms. So that was pretty fast, right? So now what I want to do here is, even though we call this ReNumber, in some cases you can also rename. So I want to maybe get my space names also in alignment with the room. Now you may notice over here, let me just stretch this out. You may notice over here that we have this thing called a prefix. And let me just show you where this came from. When I come over to the access more rules, let's look at this over here. So this one's highlighted right over here. I'm going to hit this edit button. And when I hit this edit button, we added a constant in here. And if I just double click on this, there's the value, and we're prompting the user for the value, meaning you can change it. If you want to lock people down from making those changes, you can uncheck that and we'll automatically put that in there and the user cannot change that. But we want to give you the freedom and flexibility to do that, so we're going to go ahead and leave that. So with that in mind, I'll just go ahead and close out of this. This is where that optional prefix is, but in this case, I don't want to put sp-room name. I'll just leave it like that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do that. I just changed my mind. And I'm going to hit auto number, or in this case, auto name by view. I'll hit that, and you can see how we put that prefix in there, and I hit accept changes, and there you have it. Just like that, we've matched the space, the room names as well. Keep in mind, if the architect, didn't name a room, of course, we're just going to match that name. So we want to make sure the architect has done that as well. So that's a pretty easy built-in kind of workflow. Wonderful, right? No big deal, easy to handle. So that's a nice way to get those in alignment. And you can see how fast that went. But if you're like me, I'm all about customizing things, right? And so I want to actually kind of build my own rule. And so today, what I'm going to focus on in terms of building these rules over here is I'm actually going to renumber my air terminals. And if I select on one of them over here, we can see this one has a number of 1582. But I also see that there's kind of a schedule level to these elements over here. So I'm thinking maybe I want to build a numbering schema that reflects the level and maybe the space number, and then gives me a 1, 2, 3, 4, especially if there are multiple air terminals in one space. And we can just clearly see in a lot of cases there are multiple air terminals in one space. So I want to have a lot of flexibility in that. So let's take a look at that here real quickly in terms of how we want to build that rule. I'm going to go to ReNumber over here. And when I launch ReNumber, the first thing I noticed over here is that I don't see any sort of built-in rule that shows up for air terminals. And if I select the ellipsis button, I don't have one here as well, but that's okay. Again, we don't have rules for every single category in every single situation. So let's hit the new button and see if air terminals even appears. All right, so we're going to hit new and take a look at that. And we tell you right here, only categories of elements in the active view are displayed. We're not going to bore you with every category in Revit when we have no interest in editing that data. Only what's visible in this particular view. And here we have air terminals. So let's go ahead and select that. And I don't like to just call it rule 1. That looks like I didn't put much effort into it. And so we want to go ahead and give it a real name. So I'll just call this one over here, maybe we'll call this like air terminals based on level and space. All right, we'll just do that. And then I'm going to hit OK. All right, and then when it comes up, this is the information that we're going to see. And I want to target the mark parameter, meaning whatever I build here for the rule, it will push that data into the mark value. And you can see over here, if I click in here, we're giving you other instance-based text-based data. So keep in mind, it's instance parameters and text-based, okay? That gives you the options to do alphanumeric information and push that into a parameter that can handle that kind of data. So I'm gonna go to the mark value. And so I wanna build a rule that captures the level information and so forth. Now, before I capture the level information though, I am going to hit yes to that for a moment, because there's one thing I also want to show you. I'm going to show you something kind of neat. I'm going to come to manage, or actually view, and I'm going to go over to schedules, and I'm going to make a level schedule. And you're going to see what I'm going to do here right now. I'm going to go to level schedule, and for the level schedule, I'm going to do the let's see, the level name and the elevation, and you'll see what I'm doing here in a moment. I'm also going to create a new parameter. I'm going to call this level prefix, okay? And I'm going to make it a text-based parameter, and I'll just maybe put it under identity data. And you're going to see why I'm doing this here in a moment. When I come to the schedule, we can see the levels over here and my custom parameter. So I'm going to use this as part of my naming schema. I'm going to say for each level, I'm going to put a prefix parameter in here. And in ReNumber, I'm going to use this data for each one of these levels and build a string to renumber all of my air terminals. And you're going to see how cool this is in about 2 minutes. All right, so here we go. And level 7A is my favorite. I don't really know. I've never made a level 7A before, so we'll leave it. Okay, so really what happens is if I were to select a level, just as an example, let me just come down here maybe to a elevation view, and I'll just show you what I'm talking about. Hopefully this generates quickly. When I come down to this level view over here, or this elevation view, and select one of these levels, let's just grab, not one from a link, of course. This is always a fun part, a lot of tabbing. We can see that is not from this project. Oh, it's somewhere. I guess I could even just I could use Ideate to explore for this, right? But I'll just kind of ignore it for now. But basically what I've done here is I've applied that parameter to the level. I'll come back here now. Let me go to ReNumber. And then what I'll do here is I'm going to go back and edit this rule now. Okay, now that I have that parameter, and I'm going to add some information. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a field, and I'm going to call this one the level prefix. Okay, so this is just the name that you're going to see show up right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down in my parameters list, and I'm going to look for level-based information, and then you can see the level prefix. All right, and when I hit OK, this is what shows up. You can see this from our example how that looks. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a constant, all right, which will be a dash, but I'm going to give people the option to change that dash if they don't like it, okay? And I'll just call this like SEP for separator. All right, and you can see over here there's my separator, okay? So now I'm just basically building a string to renumber my air terminals. Okay, now after I've done that, what I want to do is I want to add another field. And in this case, I'm going to call this space number. So I'll just call it space number. And then what I'll do here is I'm going to come down and I'm going to look under the space category. So what we're doing is we're grabbing parameter data from the model, and we're just using this to concatenate this information, okay? So you can see here, this is looking really neat. At least in my opinion, it's looking pretty neat. And again, I'll do this. All right, and I'm going to call this an SEP for separator once again. You can see what's happening over here. And then finally, I'm going to add an increment. And what the increment's going to do is going to automatically increment these elements as I renumber them. So depending on how many air terminals you have in each space, I'm only probably going to go with 2 characters to start with. And then as this thing renumbers, as we get to the next space, the increment's going to start over. Meaning when I go from this space to this space, the increment's going to reset from, let's say, 3 air terminals back to 1. So this may have 001, 002, 003, and then when I get to the next space, it'll be 01. Then this won't be 01, this will be 01, and so forth. If you don't want to do that, you could say none, and it will just continue to increment these and whatever the space number is, it'll use that space number in there, but the increment's going to keep growing and growing and growing until we get to the very last terminal. But I want to just increment them on a per space basis. So if you have a look at that, you can change how the increment works. I'm going to hit OK. Here's the exact example that I'm looking for. And when I hit save and close and hit OK, now you can see ReNumber looks better, right? Okay, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to auto number by view, meaning I'm not going to draw a path through these elements. I'm going to let ReNumber take care of this for me and kind of automatically determine based on kind of coordinate location which one's going to be 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, and so forth, okay? And I'll hit start numbering. And you can see right here, by the way, those are those separators. If you don't want dashes and you want dots, you can do that. I'm going to show you another example of that in a moment. I'm going to hit start numbering. Real quickly, we're picking up the level prefix on this level, plus the space number, and then the increment values. And you can kind of see what's going on over here, right? And here's one that's got 2 values, right? Okay, I'm going to hit accept changes, and I'm going to close this down. And let's just zoom in and take a look at this. Here's 1002, and so here's 01, 1002, 01. And here is 02. If I come in over here and kind of tab through this, you can see there's number 1, okay? And if I come in over here as well, that also has a 01 because this was on an increment per space. Really easy way to handle this, okay? So be thinking about how you want to build your renumbering rules, okay? And by the way, we have a lot of this information documented on our website, on our help file as well. Okay, but did you also know you can renumber in a schedule, all right? Now, when you renumber in a schedule, you don't get to pick or draw lines in here, right? Revit doesn't allow you to draw lines in a schedule. So what this does allow you to do is you can kind of configure your schedules and organize them maybe by space number first, and then you can go ahead and renumber. So you can see here, I kind of have them organized by space number, and then by space name, and you can see the existing mark values over here. And again, they look like maybe they're out of order from this, and the reason why is it just has to do with how the ReNumber kind of predetermined that numbering schema. But you can actually run ReNumber in a schedule as well, which is really neat. Of course, you don't get to draw lines or pick elements, you only get an auto number by view. So I'll use the same rule, but maybe this time I'll make them dots, just so you can see a change here. And then I'll hit start numbering. Just like that, once again, no errors, no problems, I love it. I'll hit accept changes. And just like that, I was able to renumber these in this particular view. So again, you can use schedules. Think about they'll pre-sort it, of course, before you do all of that. But you can see over here how nicely organized they are. Okay, so again, 30-minute webinar, really quick. I want to generate some juices here. Glennis, do we have any questions that we can maybe read aloud and answer before we let everybody go for today?
Hey, Sash. We have actually just one, so I would encourage everybody else to weigh in on that. But yeah, we have someone who says that they're working at a multidiscipline firm and are wondering if, in addition to ReNumber, if there's any other tools that are part of apps that can help them with like sheet or view creation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So we've actually had a very similar question and workflow that we actually ended up resolving for a customer and baking into our product, and that would actually be with Clone. I don't know if I have any good sheet examples here, but I'll make this really quick. One of the nice things about Clone is, especially let's say on the mechanical side, you've created several views on several levels, but now you want to create electrical views essentially, where you want to make a copy of that view up to like the electrical discipline. Clone can actually handle that. And one of the things is, if I end up coming over here and saying, I want to duplicate the view, I can come in over here and say, what, I want to find any of the word called mechanical and replace it with the word electrical. And what's great about this is we'll duplicate this view on the sheet and give it a new name for you. And so when you do that, we'll make the new sheet for you. And then what that'll ultimately do is it will make that new electrical view for you. And then you can come in here and just do a little bit of house cleaning. I don't know where that view ended up, but you can do a little house cleaning after the fact and change its discipline if you need to, or apply a view template or whatever you need to do. But this is kind of a fast way to get those views on those sheets and really make those changes pretty quickly. Great question, by the way. Were there other questions, Glennis, that had popped up? It looks like something may have come through here.
Yeah, there was one more, Sash. Someone's asking about Cobie and needing to do sort of Cobie-based numbering. Do you have anything for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you know with Cobie, you're required to have unique naming and numbering requirements, right? So a lot of times owners do not, owners will actually have their own kind of numbering or naming schema. Forget, the mark value in Revit. And so you can use BIMlink to handle this task if you want to, but a lot of cases in ReNumber, you can actually build a numbering schema that works for Cobie. And so you can renumber your MEP elements based on the Cobie standard. So you kind of saw what I did like with the level prefix as an example. If you need to customize parameters to help you build that, you can certainly do that. And we've built a couple of built-in rules for Cobie just to kind of let you know. So feel free to check that out. And this may be a good opportunity to talk about this. If you have any feature requests or webinar ideas, if you want to see more Cobie stuff end up in our products, please reach out to us and let us know. We want to hear about your workflows and your challenges so we can continue to improve our software and continue to deliver webinars like this. So the Cobie one's a great example. We've had a lot of requests for Cobie, which is one of the reasons why we put the Cobie information in ReNumber. And again, some of our other products can handle some of the workflows like that as well, like BIMlink, for example. So great question. So it looks like we're at around the 9 o'clock hour. I'll hang out here for another minute if people have questions. Again, find us online at ideatesoftware.com. We have a lot of information and blog posts that you can review. So if you have any workflow questions, feel free to look at that. And again, don't be afraid. Reach out to us if you have questions. We're here to help out. Glennis, any final thoughts or questions?
I'm not seeing anything else. Thanks so much, Sash. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, again, quick webinar, but we wanted to just kind of remind you of that we are here to listen and we have workflows for you. And hopefully this will help you kind of get started and play around. And again, if you run into any challenges, let us know. We can help. All right, we'll hang out online here for another minute or so to see if there's any questions. And if there are not, we'll go ahead and finish it.
Hey, Sash, it looks like someone's asking for the information about the Cobie webinar. So we'll follow up. If anybody else wants information about that, we can follow up with you directly. Thanks.
Yeah, and you know what? And maybe we should put together a Cobie webinar for this. I think that would be a great one.
It's never ending. Okay.
It never is. Yeah, Cobie's a lot of fun. So be on the lookout for that. We'll talk about that internally for sure. All right. Let's see. Did other questions appear here?
There's a question about being able to copy features, or excuse me, copy things between projects. I think we probably, Oscar, that's a great question. I don't know if you can clarify what it is you're hoping to copy between projects. That would be useful.
That would be, yeah. And I guess in some ways, maybe while they're maybe clarifying that question, in terms of copying features, I mean, that's where, if you want to copy like workflows, for example, that's where the pre-configured links or custom links, so that you saw the one that I created for renumbering my air terminals, that can now be exported out and imported, into another project if need be. And you can save those on your server, for example, and people can pull those in. And so absolutely, in terms of that. So in terms of copying features, yeah, it would be good to know a little bit more information on that one.
Looks like we're also getting a lot of endorsement for the idea of a Cobie-focused webinar.
Yeah, I can see that right now. All right, it looks like that one's on the table. I'm more than happy to put together one of those since I do like Cobie. So, all right, well, feel free to reach out to us with any further questions and webinar ideas at support@ideatesoftware.com. I'm going to go ahead and close out this webinar and let everybody go on about their day. Thank you so much once again, and check out our web events calendar for future webinars. Take care, everybody.